Imagine discovering your own son refuses to donate blood to save your life, that he'd rather watch you die. My name is John, I'm 57 years old, and I thought I knew my son. Until the day I needed an emergency blood transfusion, I'd rather die than save a loser like you, were his exact words. My own blood, my own creation. The child I sacrificed everything for looked me in the eyes and chose my death. But here's what he didn't know, what nobody knew. I wasn't just any father. I was a man who built empires, a man who could donate blood to save someone's life, or drain every drop of security from theirs. My son refused to donate blood to save me. He called me a loser, said he'd rather see me die than lift a finger to help. Those were his last words to the man who gave him everything. What happened next will shock you, because when you refuse to donate blood to save your father's life, you better make sure that father doesn't survive anyway. Before I continue, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we publish new stories daily. Leave your like and tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. Complete YouTube scripts. I never thought my own flesh and blood would choose my death over a simple blood donation. My name is John Harrison. I'm 57 years old, and I'm a retired investment banker who spent 32 years building portfolios worth over $800 million. But money means nothing when you're lying in a hospital bed watching your hemoglobin drop to critical levels, and your only compatible donor tells you he'd rather watch you die. I'd rather die than save a loser like you, Dad. Those were Michael's exact words. My son, 28 years old, the same kid I put through Harvard Business School at $47,000 per year. The same boy I bought a $2.3 million house for when he got married. The same man who now makes $600,000 annually because of the connections I provided. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how we got here. How a father who gave everything became worthless in his son's eyes. How a man who donated blood countless times to help strangers was denied that same gift by his own child. Before I continue, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we publish new stories daily. Leave your like and tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. It started 3 years ago when my wife Margaret died. Ovarian cancer, stage 4. We fought it for 18 months, spending $375,000 on experimental treatments. I liquidated my retirement portfolio, sold our vacation home in Martha's Vineyard, mortgaged our primary residence in Beacon Hill. Every dollar went to keeping her alive. Margaret was everything to me. 43 years of marriage. She was the reason I worked 16-hour days for 3 decades. The reason I missed Little League games and piano recitals. I thought I was building something for our family. I thought the sacrifice meant something. When Sadid, I was left with debts totaling $412,000, and a grief so deep it felt like drowning. But I still had my children, Michael and Sarah. I thought they understood why I'd spent everything on their mother. I thought they knew love when they saw it. Michael had a different perspective. 3 months after the funeral, he showed up at my apartment, not my house. I'd sold that to pay medical bills, a 600 square foot rental in Somerville that cost me $2,800 monthly. Dad, we need to talk about your finances, he said, sitting across from my kitchen table like a creditor collecting debts. He pulled out a folder thick with printouts, bank statements, investment records, property deeds, my entire financial life spread across cheap laminate. You spent Mom's inheritance, he said. His voice was cold, clinical, like he was analyzing a bad investment. Sarah and I were supposed to inherit $1.8 million. Instead, you gave it all to doctors who couldn't even save her. I stared at my son, this man I'd held as a baby, whose college I'd funded, whose wedding I'd paid for, whose first house I'd bought. He was calculating our family's love in dollars and cents. Michael, I spent that money trying to save your mother's life, and you failed. Now there's nothing left for your actual family, as if Margaret wasn't his mother, as if 37 years of marriage and sacrifice meant nothing compared to his inheritance projections. That was the first crack in our relationship, but I thought time would heal it. I thought he'd eventually understand that when you love someone, money becomes meaningless. You spend everything because the alternative is unthinkable. I was wrong. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 6 months later, Michael got promoted to Senior Vice President at Goldman Sachs, a position he obtained partly because I'd introduced him to 3 board members during industry events. My reputation opened doors. His resume alone never could have. His salary jumped from $280,000 to $600,000 annually, plus bonuses, plus stock options. In 1 year, he'd earn more than most people see in a lifetime. I was proud. Despite everything, I was proud of my son's success. I called to congratulate him. "Dad, I can't talk right now. I'm meeting clients. I just wanted to say congratulations on the promotion. Thanks. Listen, about Thanksgiving. Jessica and I won't be coming this year." Jessica, his wife, the woman whose wedding I'd funded with $43,000, whose honeymoon to Italy I'd arranged through my travel connections. Why not? We're going to the Hamptons. The Richardsons invited us to their estate. The Richardsons' clients, I'd referred to him personally, people who trusted me enough to entrust their portfolios to my son. "Michael, it's our first Thanksgiving since your mother died. Dad, you need to understand something. Jessica and I are building our careers. We can't afford to be associated with your current situation." My current situation? Being broke, being broken, being a man who'd chosen love over financial planning. I spent Thanksgiving alone in my apartment, eating a frozen dinner and looking at photos of better times. Times when my family valued more than net worth and social status. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst was still coming. Winter arrived early that year. By December, I was struggling with more than loneliness. I'd developed a persistent cough, fatigue that felt like carrying stones, bruising that appeared without cause. I ignored it for weeks, months. Medical bills had already destroyed my finances. I couldn't afford to be sick again. But by February, I couldn't ignore the symptoms anymore. The cough had become constant. I was losing weight rapidly. Simple tasks left me exhausted. Sarah finally convinced me to see a doctor. My daughter, 26 years old, newly graduated from law school. Unlike Michael, she still called regularly, still visited when she could, still treated me like her father instead of a financial disappointment. Dr. Patricia Wong examined me thoroughly. Blood tests, CT scans, bone marrow biopsy. The results took a week to process, a week of sleepless nights and growing certainty that something was seriously wrong. "Mr. Harrison, you have acute myeloid leukemia." For words that changed everything. Cancer, the same disease that had taken my wife, now growing inside me. What are my options? Chemotherapy. Immediately. But given the advanced stage, you'll also need blood transfusions. Regular ones. Your blood type is AB negative. That's rare. Only 0.6% of the population. AB negative, the universal plasma donor. Ironically, I could give blood to anyone, but only specific types could give to me. Do you have family members who could be tested for compatibility? I thought of Michael and Sarah, my children, the people who shared my DNA and, theoretically, my love. Yes, 2 children. We should test them immediately. Time is critical. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. I called Sarah first. She was at her law firm in downtown Boston, working late on a merger case. "Dad, of course I'll get tested. I'm leaving the office right now." No hesitation, no questions about inconvenience or timing, just immediate action to help her father. "Sarah, you don't have to." "Dad, stop. You'd do the same for me." "You did do the same for Mom." 20 minutes later, she was at Massachusetts General Hospital, rolling up her sleeve for blood work. The results came back the next morning. Not compatible. Sarah's blood type was O positive. She could receive from me, but couldn't give back. We were genetically incompatible for transfusion, but not for love. "I'm sorry, Dad. I wish I could help." "Sweetheart, it's not your fault. We'll figure something else out." But we both knew there was one more option. One more family member to test. I called Michael that evening. He was at home in his 4-bedroom colonial in Newton. The house I'd helped him by co-signing the mortgage when his credit wasn't quite enough for the loan. Michael, I need to talk to you about something important. Dad, can this wait? Jessica and I are hosting dinner for the Pemberton account. The Pemberton account, another client I'd referred. Another relationship built on my reputation and connections. Son, I have leukemia. I need blood transfusions to survive. We need to test your blood type for compatibility. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Michael, are you there? Yeah, I'm here. Look, Dad, this is really bad timing. I've got the Pemberton deal closing next week. I can't afford to be sick or weak right now. Michael, I'm not asking you to be sick. I'm asking for blood tests to see if you can help save my life. And if I'm compatible, then what? You'll expect me to give blood regularly? How often? I don't know yet. Maybe monthly, maybe more frequently. Dad, do you understand what you're asking? I work 80-hour weeks. I travel constantly. I can't be running 2 hospitals for blood draws. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Colder than the cancer, colder than grief. Michael, I'm asking you to help save your father's life. Dad, you made your choices. You spent everything on Mom instead of planning for the future. Now you expect me to sacrifice my career to fix your mistakes? My mistakes? You could have saved money for medical emergencies instead of throwing everything at a hopeless case. Now Sarah and I are supposed to clean up the mess. A hopeless case. He was calling his mother a hopeless case. Get the blood test, Michael. Please. I'll think about it. He didn't call back for 3 days. When he finally did, I was weak from my first chemotherapy session, not just dizzy, clinging to hope that my son might choose to help. Dad, I got tested. And I'm AB negative, same as you. Perfect compatibility. My son could save my life with a simple blood donation. Something that would take 30 minutes and cause him no lasting harm. Michael, that's wonderful. When can you come in for the first donation? Dad, I've been thinking about this a lot. Talking it over with Jessica. Jessica, the woman who'd benefited from my generosity for years, but apparently felt no obligation to reciprocate when I was dying. And we don't think it's a good idea. What's not a good idea? Me donating blood. It could affect my health, my performance at work, my ability to provide for my family. Michael, blood donation is completely safe. People do it regularly, with no side effects. Dad, you don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. The Pemberton account alone is worth $12 million in fees. I can't risk anything that might compromise my focus. I was lying in a hospital bed, poisoning my body with chemotherapy, fighting cancer with every cell I had left, and my son was worried about his job performance. Son, I need those transfusions to live. Dad, I'm sorry, but I have to think about my own family now. I am your family. You were my family. But when you spent my inheritance on Mom, you chose her over me and Sarah. Now I'm choosing my wife and future children over you. The line went quiet. I could hear my heart monitor beeping steadily in the background, each beep marking time I might not have. Michael, please reconsider. Dad, you'll have to find another donor. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. But it wasn't that simple. AB-negative blood is rare. The hospital blood bank had limited supplies. Finding compatible donors through the registry would take time I didn't have. Dr. Wong explained my situation during my next appointment. Mr. Harrison, your hemoglobin levels are dropping faster than expected. We need to start transfusions within the week. What if you can't find compatible blood? We'll find it, but it might require calling multiple blood centers across New England. The process could take several days. Several days I might not have. Several days my son could eliminate with a 30-minute donation. I called him one more time. Michael, the situation is urgent. I need blood transfusions this week. Dad, I told you my position. Son, I'm asking you to save my life. Your father's life. And I'm telling you I won't risk my career for someone who already wasted everything I was supposed to inherit. This isn't about money. Everything is about money. Dad, you just never understood that. Mum's dead because you spent money on false hope instead of accepting reality. Now you're dying because you didn't plan ahead. I'm not going to let your poor decisions drag me down too. Michael, Dad, I need to be completely honest with you. I've talked this over with Jessica and our financial advisor. Our financial advisor. The same one I'd recommended when Michael first started making serious money. We've run the numbers on your situation. Between the medical costs, the time off work for donations, and the potential impact on my health, helping you could cost me upwards of $50,000 annually. He'd reduced my life to a cost-benefit analysis. His father's survival was a bad investment. And frankly, Dad, you're 57 with advanced cancer. Even with transfusions, your prognosis isn't great. It doesn't make financial sense for me to sacrifice my prime earning years for someone who might not survive anyway. The words hit me like physical blows. My son had calculated my worth and found it lacking. Michael, I love you. I know you think you do, Dad. But if you really loved me, you would have saved my inheritance instead of wasting it on false hope. You would have planned for situations like this instead of expecting me to bail you out. I spent that money trying to save your mother, and it didn't work. Now you're asking me to make the same mistake. Helping your father isn't a mistake. Dad, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person you raised. I'm a successful businessman who makes decisions based on logic, not emotion. And logically, donating blood to extend your life by a few months isn't worth the potential cost to my career. I felt something break inside me. Not physically, emotionally. The last connection to the family I'd built and sacrificed for. So, this is your final answer. Dad, this isn't personal. It's just business. You're my son. This is as personal as it gets. Not anymore. When you chose Mom over my future, you made it clear where your priorities were. Now I'm making mine clear too. The line went dead. My son had hung up on me, chosen my death over a minor inconvenience. But Michael made one crucial error in his calculations. He assumed I was just another desperate patient with no resources and no power. He forgot who I was before cancer. What I was capable of when properly motivated. John Harrison wasn't just a broke widower dying in a hospital bed. I was a man who'd spent 32 years building networks, accumulating favors, and understanding exactly how money and power functioned in the real world. My son wanted to treat this like business. Fine, I'd show him what real business looked like. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. The blood bank found compatible donors within 48 hours. To volunteers from the regional registry who didn't even know me, but were willing to help a stranger survive. People with no genetic connection to me showed more compassion than my own son. The first transfusion stabilized my condition immediately. Color returned to my skin. Energy returned to my body. Hope returned to my heart. But it wasn't hope for recovery anymore. It was hope for justice. I spent my first night out of critical condition, making phone calls note to family, not to friends. To contacts I'd cultivated over 3 decades in investment banking. Richard, it's John Harrison, Richard CEO of Pemberton Industries. The same account Michael was so worried about losing. John, how are you? I heard you were sick. Getting better. Thanks. Richard, I need to ask you something confidential about my son. Michael, he's doing great work on our account. I'm glad to hear that. But I need to know something. Has he mentioned my medical situation? Actually, yes. He said you were demanding he'd take time off for some family issue. Said you were being unrealistic about his professional obligations. Family issue. That's how Michael had characterized my fight for survival. Richard, I have cancer. I needed blood transfusions. Michael is the only compatible donor in my family. Silence, long enough for Richard to process what he'd just heard. Jesus, John, I had no idea. Michael made it sound like you were being dramatic about something minor. He told you I was being dramatic. He said you'd always been emotional about family stuff, that you expected him to drop everything for minor medical procedures. Minor medical procedures. My son had minimized my cancer to his biggest client. Richard, I need you to understand something. I'm not calling to hurt Michael's career. I'm calling because I value our relationship and I don't want there to be any misunderstandings. What kind of misunderstandings? Micah may have given you the impression that I'm unreasonable or demanding. I want you to know that's not the case. I simply asked my son to help save my life, and he chose not to. He chose not to. He ran a cost-benefit analysis and decided that helping me wasn't worth the potential impact on his income. Richard was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder. John, I need to be honest with you. Michael told us you were bitter about money he couldn't lend you. He made it sound like you were trying to guilt him into financial support. He told you I was asking for money? He said you'd spent everything on your wife's medical bills and now expected him to subsidize your lifestyle. My son had lied to his biggest client, turned my request for blood donation into a story about financial manipulation, made himself look responsible and me look like a burden. Richard, I never asked Michael for money. I asked him to donate blood to keep me alive, and he said no. He said I was a bad investment. The silence stretched longer this time. Richard Pemberton was a father of 3. He understood what those words meant. John, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Like I said, I'm not calling to cause problems. I just wanted you to know the truth. I appreciate that. And John, take care of yourself. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I made similar calls to 6 other contacts, people who knew Michael professionally, people who trusted him because they trusted me. I didn't lie about my son. I didn't exaggerate. I simply told the truth about what he'd said and done. Let them draw their own conclusions about his character. But that was just the beginning. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 3 days later, I received a call from my former colleague at Morgan Stanley. John, it's Patricia Chun. Patricia was a senior managing director, someone I'd worked with for 12 years before retirement, someone who still handled several accounts I'd originally brought to the firm. Patricia, good to hear from you. John, I heard about your situation. I'm so sorry. Word was spreading. In the small world of investment banking, news traveled fast, especially news about family betrayal. Thank you. I'm managing. John, I need to tell you something. We're reviewing all the accounts that came through family referrals, making sure there are no conflicts of interest. What kind of conflicts? Well, Michael's been representing himself as having your full endorsement, using your reputation to secure meetings and close deals. And, John, if your son refused to help save your life, can we really trust him to protect our clients' interests? It was a fair question. Character matters in finance. People trust you with their life savings based on their assessment of your integrity. If you'll let your father die to avoid inconvenience, what won't you do for money? Patricia, I can't tell you how to run your business. You don't have to. We're already moving the Morrison account to a different advisor. The Morrison account, worth $8 million in assets under management. Michael's annual fees from that single account were $64,000. How many accounts are you reviewing? All of them, about $40 million total. $40 million in assets. At a standard 1.6% management fee, Michael stood to lose $640,000 annually, more than his base salary, but I wasn't done. Over the next week, I made more calls, not to hurt my son, but to protect people who'd trusted him based on my recommendation. I called the Hendersons, whose retirement portfolio Michael managed. George, it's John Harrison. John, how are you feeling? Better? Thanks. George, I need to discuss something sensitive about Michael. Is everything okay? I need you to know that Michael and I are no longer close. He may continue to use my name and reputation, but he no longer has my endorsement. What happened? I told him. Simply, honestly, without embellishment. Jesus, John. I had no idea. We trusted him because we trusted you. I understand. That's why I'm calling. I don't want anyone to feel misled. What should we do? That's your decision, George. I just wanted you to have all the information. Similar conversations with the Nakamuras, the Fitzpatricks, the Rudd, all clients who'd trusted Michael because they trusted me. Within 2 weeks, Michael had lost 12 major accounts. over 25 million in assets under management. His annual income dropped from 600,000 to 230,000. But money was just the beginning. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. I also called Michael's mortgage broker. David Kim had handled the loan for Michael's house in Newton. The same loan I'd co-signed when Michael's income wasn't quite sufficient. David, it's John Harrison. John, how's your health? Improving? David, I need to discuss my co-signator on Michael's mortgage. Is there a problem? I want to remove my name from the loan. John, you can't just remove a co-signer. Michael would need to refinance or pay off the balance. How much does he owe? About 1.8 million. And what's his current income? Last year he reported 600,000. It's significantly less now. I explained about the lost accounts, the reduced income, the changed circumstances. David, I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but I co-signed that loan as a favor to my son. Now he's made it clear we're no longer family. I don't think I should be financially liable for someone who considers me a bad investment. I understand your position, John. What happens if I formally request to be removed as co-signer? Michael would need to qualify for the loan on his own. Given his reduced income, that might be difficult. And if he can't qualify, the bank could demand immediate payment of the full balance, $1.8 million. Michael's reduced income of $230,000 wouldn't qualify him for a mortgage that size. He'd have to sell the house. The same house I'd helped him buy. The house that had been a symbol of his success and my generosity. But I wasn't finished with financial adjustments. I also called Jessica's employer. She worked at a boutique marketing firm downtown, a company that had gotten several major contracts through connections I'd provided. Amanda, it's John Harrison. Amanda Walsh owned the firm, someone I'd known for 15 years through industry events. John, I've been meaning to call. I heard you were sick. Thank you. I'm recovering. Amanda, I need to discuss something about Jessica. Michael's wife, she's doing excellent work here. I'm glad to hear that, but I should mention that Michael and I have had a falling out. Oh no, what happened? I explained the situation. My cancer, the blood donation request, Michael's refusal, and his reasoning. Amanda, I'm not calling to hurt Jessica professionally, but some of the accounts she manages came through my connections. I want to make sure there's no awkwardness if those relationships change. What do you mean? I mean, I may not be comfortable referring business to a company that employs someone married to my son. The implication was clear. Jessica's biggest accounts existed because of my relationships. If those relationships soured, the accounts might leave. John, I hope we can work this out somehow. So do I. But right now, I need to focus on my health and recovery. 3 of Jessica's major accounts requested different account managers within the week. Her billings dropped from $400,000 annually to $150,000. Her year-end bonus disappeared. Her promotion to partner was indefinitely postponed. Michael's household income had dropped from over $1 million annually to less than $400,000. Still substantial by most standards, but not enough to support their mortgage, car payments, private club memberships, and luxury lifestyle. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. But financial pressure was only part of the strategy. I also focused on social consequences. Newton is a small community among the professional class. Word spreads quickly about family scandals, business failures, and character questions. I didn't gossip. I didn't spread rumors. I simply told the truth when people asked about my health and my family situation. At the Newton Country Club, where Michael and Jessica were members, people began asking questions. How could a son refuse to donate blood to save his father? What kind of person runs a cost-to-benefit analysis on their parents' survival? The whispers started small. Conversations at the 19th hole. Comments during tennis matches. Speculation over dinner parties. Did you hear about the Harrison situation? Terrible business. The son refused to help. I heard he called his father a bad investment. What kind of man calculates the cost of saving his parents' life? Michael and Jessica found themselves excluded from social events. Invitations stopped coming. Dinner parties happened without them. Golf foursomes formed around different players. At the country club, reputation is everything. Members are expected to maintain certain standards of character and behavior. When those standards slip, the community responds accordingly. Michael's application for the club's board of directors was quietly withdrawn. His proposal to host the annual charity tournament was rejected. His reservations for prime tea times were mysteriously unavailable. Jessica faced similar treatment at her yoga studio, her book club, and her volunteer organizations. People were polite but distant, friendly but not welcoming. The social isolation was devastating for a couple who'd built their identity around community status and professional networking. But I still wasn't finished. I also contacted the admissions office at Harvard Business School. Michael was an active alumnus who donated regularly and conducted interviews for prospective students. Professor Williams, it's John Harrison. John, good to hear from you. How's your health? Professor Williams had been Michael's faculty advisor, someone I'd met during graduation and stayed in touch with over the years. Improving. Thank you. Professor, I need to discuss something sensitive about Michael. Is there a problem? I explained the situation. My cancer diagnosis, the blood donation request, Michael's refusal and his cost-benefit reasoning. John, I'm shocked. That doesn't sound like the Michael I taught. People change. Professor, success sometimes brings out different sides of character. What can I do? Nothing dramatic, but Michael represents Harvard when he interviews prospective students. I think the school should know about his character judgment. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I'm not asking you to punish him, just to be aware of who's representing the school's values. Within the month, Michael's interviewing responsibilities were reassigned to other alumni. His invitations to school events stopped arriving. His donations were politely acknowledged, but not actively solicited. The Harvard Alumni Network had been crucial to Michael's business development. Many of his clients were fellow graduates who trusted him partly because of shared institutional values. When word spread that Michael was no longer active with admissions, people began asking questions. Why would Harvard distance itself from a successful alum? What had happened to damage that relationship? If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. By month 3 of my recovery, Michael's world was collapsing systematically. His income had dropped 60%. His mortgage was in jeopardy. His social standing was destroyed. His professional reputation was damaged. His marriage was strained by financial and social pressures, but he still hadn't called me. Until Edith. I was at home in my small apartment, reviewing lab results from my latest blood work. The cancer was in remission. The transfusions from generous strangers had saved my life. My phone rang. Michael's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Michael, Dad. We need to talk. His voice was different, strained, desperate. Gone was the confident arrogance that had characterized our last conversation. What can I do for you? Dad, I don't know what you've been telling people, but my life is falling apart. I've been telling people the truth. What truth? That when I was dying from cancer, I asked my son to donate blood to save my life, and he refused because he considered me a bad investment. Dad, that's not fair. You're making me sound like a monster. Michael, I'm not making you sound like anything. I'm telling people exactly what you said and did, but you're not giving them context. You're not explaining my position. What context would make refusing to save your father's life acceptable? Silence. He couldn't answer because there wasn't an answer. Dad, I'm losing clients. My mortgage might be called in. Jessica might lose her job. Our friends won't talk to us. I see. You have to help me fix this. The irony was perfect. The son who'd refused to help save his father's life was now begging that same father to save his career. Michael, help you how? Call people back. Explain that it was a misunderstanding. Tell them I was just scared about your condition. But that wouldn't be true. Dad, please. I'm desperate here. You're desperate. How interesting. When I was desperate, dying from cancer and begging for blood to survive, you called me a bad investment. Dad, I was wrong. I admit it, but I can't change the past. I need your help now. You need my help. The same help you refused to give me. That's different. How is it different? Because you're not actually dying anymore. The hospital found other donors. You're fine now. I felt that familiar coldness settle in my chest. Even now, facing personal and professional ruin, Michael still didn't understand what he'd done. Michael, I want you to listen carefully. I'm going to explain something to you. Okay, when you refused to donate blood to save my life, you didn't just risk my death. You killed our relationship. You chose money over family. You calculated my worth and found it lacking. Dad, I'm not finished. You told people I was being dramatic about minor medical procedures. You lied to your clients about why I needed help. You turned my cancer into a story about financial manipulation. I was protecting my career. You were protecting your income at the expense of your father's life. And now you want me to protect your career at the expense of my integrity. Dad, please. I'll do anything. Anything. Yes, anything. Michael, I need surgery next month. A minor procedure. But I'll need blood transfusions as a precaution. Will you donate? Silence. Long, telling silence. Dad, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm under a lot of stress right now. My blood might not be suitable. And there it was. Even facing total ruin, even begging for help, my son still wouldn't donate blood to help his father. Michael, thank you for clarifying your position. What do you mean? I mean, you've just proven that nothing has changed. You're still the same person who valued his career over his father's life. You're just upset that there are consequences. Dad, wait. I hung up. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 2 days later, Michael showed up at my apartment. Unannounced, uninvited, desperate. I opened the door to find my son standing in the hallway. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His hair was dark circles shadowed his eyes. Dad, please, we need to talk face to face. I stepped aside and let him enter. He looked around my small apartment. The same 600 square foot space he'd judged so harshly after his mother's funeral. Dad, I'm begging you. My marriage is falling apart. Jessica blames me for destroying our life. The bank is demanding immediate payment on our mortgage. I might lose my job entirely. You don't understand. We had to cancel our vacation to Europe. Jessica's parents are asking questions about why we're suddenly struggling. Our friends think we're toxic. I sat down across from him, the same kitchen table where he'd once calculated my wife's medical expenses as wasted money. Michael, you seem upset about people making judgments based on incomplete information. Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. How does it feel? What do you mean? How does it feel to have your character assessed and found lacking? To have people make decisions about your worth based on your actions? He stared at me for a moment, then looked away. Dad, I get it. You're angry, but destroying my life won't bring Mom back. It won't cure your cancer. You're right, but it might teach you something about consequences. I've learned my lesson. I swear I have. What lesson is that? That family is more important than money. Is it? Because 3 days ago, when I mentioned needing blood for surgery, you still refused to donate. His face flushed red. Dad, that's not fair. You are testing me. I was giving you an opportunity to prove you'd actually changed. Instead, you proved nothing had changed at all. But I was stressed. I wasn't thinking clearly. Michael, when I was dying from cancer, I was also stressed. I also wasn't thinking clearly. But when you asked for my help just now, did I calculate the cost to my reputation? Did I run a cost-benefit analysis on whether saving your career was worth my time? He was quiet. No, I didn't. Because when someone you love needs help, you help them. You don't negotiate. You don't calculate. You don't make excuses, Dad. I understand that now. Do you? Because understanding something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are very different things. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what love actually means. Not the word, not the concept. The reality of putting someone else's needs before your own. I do understand. Michael, if I called you right now and said I was having a heart attack, what would you do? I'd call 911. And then what? I'd come to the hospital, even if you had an important meeting. Of course, even if it might hurt your career. Dad. Yes. Obviously. Then why didn't you feel that way when I had cancer? He opened his mouth to answer, then closed Italiano. For the first time in our conversation, he seemed to really think about the question. I don't know, he said finally. I think you do know. You just don't want to admit it. Tell me what you think. I think you stopped seeing me as your father the day I spent your inheritance on your mother. I became a financial disappointment instead of a person who loved you. That's not true. Michael, when I asked you to donate blood, you didn't say you were scared of needles. You didn't say you were worried about your health. You said I was a bad investment. I was angry. About what? About losing the inheritance. About you being irresponsible with money. So you decided to let me die. I didn't decide that. I just decided not to help. Michael, do you understand that those are the same thing? He stared at me. I could see him processing the logic. If someone needs help to survive, and you refuse to help them, you've chosen their death. I didn't think of it that way. Why not? Because I was thinking about myself, about my career, about my future. And where did I fit into those calculations? You didn't. The honesty was brutal. But it was the first honest thing he'd said since arriving. Michael, that's the problem. When you love someone, they always fit into your calculations. Their needs matter as much as yours. Sometimes more. I see that now. Do you? Or do you see that treating family badly has consequences? Both, I think. Which one bothers you more? He thought about it for a long moment. The consequences, he admitted. Then you haven't learned anything. What do you mean? Michael, you're not upset that you hurt me. You're upset that hurting me hurt you. That's not remorse. That's regret about getting caught. That's not fair, isn't it? If your actions hadn't cost you money and social status, would you be here apologizing? I don't know. I think you do know. We sat in silence for several minutes. I could hear the clock ticking on my kitchen wall. The same clock that had counted down the minutes while I waited for his call about blood donation. The same clock that had measured my time while strangers saved my life. Dad, what do you want from me? I want you to understand that love isn't a business transaction. It's not about what someone can do for you or how much they're worth financially. I understand that. Michael, if Jessica got cancer tomorrow, would you spend everything to save her? Of course, even if the doctors said her chances weren't good. Yes. Why? Because I love her, and if spending that money meant you couldn't leave anything to your future children, I'd still spend it. Why? Because you can't put a price on someone's life, but you put a price on mine. He sat back in his chair like I'd slapped him. Dad, Michael, you calculated the cost of keeping me alive and decided it was too expensive. Not too expensive financially. You could have afforded the blood donations. Too expensive in terms of inconvenience. That's not how I thought about it. How did you think about it? I thought about my responsibilities to Jessica and our future family. And I wasn't part of your family. You were. But what? But you'd already shown that you valued Mom more than me and Sarah. By spending money to save her life, by spending our inheritance to save her life. Michael, that money was never yours. It was mine and your mother's. We earned it. We saved it. And we had the right to spend it however we chose. But you always said it would go to Sarah and me. And it would have if your mother hadn't gotten sick. But when someone you love is dying, money becomes irrelevant. Not to me. I know. That's the problem. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. Michael stood up and walked to my kitchen window. He looked out at the parking lot below. Cars owned by people who weren't rich, but who probably understood love better than my son did. Dad, I can't change what I did. No, you can't. But I can change what I do going forward. Can you? Because when I tested you 3 days ago, you failed again. I was scared. Of what? Of making another mistake. Of getting trapped in a situation where you'd expect more and more from me. Michael, do you hear yourself? You were scared of your father expecting help when he needed it. I know how that sounds. How does it sound? Selfish? Yes, it does. But more than that, it sounds like you still don't understand what family means. Then teach me. I looked at my son, 57 years old, and I was still trying to teach him basic human compassion. Michael, family means that person's well-being matters as much as your own. It means you sacrifice when they need you to sacrifice. It means their pain becomes your pain. I'm trying to understand. When your mother was dying, every day she suffered was a day I suffered. Every treatment that failed broke my heart as much as hers. I would have given anything to trade places with her. I remember when I was dying from cancer, I wanted to know that my children would feel the same way, that my pain would be their pain, that my survival would matter to them. It did matter. Not enough to inconvenience yourself. Dad, I was wrong. I admit it, but I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, Michael. You can only do better in the future. How? By putting family first. Actually first. Not just when it's convenient or profitable or socially acceptable. I want to do that. Do you? Because that would mean sometimes sacrificing your career for family obligations. Sometimes spending money on relatives instead of investments. Sometimes choosing love over logic. I can do that. Can you? Because everything in your adult life suggests otherwise. Michael sat back down across from me. For the first time since his arrival, he looked directly into my eyes. Damn scared of what? Of what? Of being like you. The words. My own son was afraid of becoming someone who loved unconditionally. Why does that scare you? Because look where it got you. Broke, alone, sick, living in a tiny apartment because you gave everything away. Michael, I'm not alone. Sarah visits me twice a week. I have friends from the hospital. I have neighbors who check on me. But you lost everything. I lost money. I gained perspective. What perspective? That money is replaceable. People aren't. That spending everything to save someone you love isn't wasteful. It's the most meaningful thing you can do with wealth. But now you have nothing to show for it. Michael, I have 43 years of marriage to an incredible woman. I have memories of fighting alongside her when she was dying. I have the knowledge that I did everything possible to save her. And now you're broke. Now I'm alive, thanks to strangers who donated blood to help someone they'd never met. People who understood something you still don't. What's that? That helping someone in need isn't a transaction. It's a privilege. Michael was quiet for a long time. I could see him struggling with concepts that should have been natural but felt foreign to him. Dad, I want to fix this. How? I want to donate blood. I want to help with your surgery. Why? Because you're my father and I love you. Michael, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need your blood anymore. The surgery was postponed. I'm stable. Then what can I do? You can learn to love people more than you love money. How do I do that? Start with Jessica. When she's upset about your career problems, do you comfort her or do you blame me for causing them? I blame you. Try comforting her instead. Try making her emotional well-being more important than your financial status. Okay, try calling Sarah. She's been worried sick about both of us. She blames herself for not being a compatible donor. I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know because you've been focused on yourself. I'll call her. Try volunteering at the hospital. Spend time with cancer patients who don't have family support. See what real loneliness looks like. All right. And Michael, try donating blood regularly. Not for me, for strangers who need it. Learn what it feels like to help someone without expecting anything in return. I can do that. We'll see. Michael stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back to me. Dad, will you call those people? Tell them I'm trying to change? Michael, I won't lie for you, but if you actually change, people will notice. How long will that take? Years, probably. Character isn't rebuilt quickly. What about my job? My mortgage? You'll figure it out. Maybe you'll need to downsize. Maybe Jessica will need to find a new job. Maybe you'll both learn to value things that can't be repossessed. This is going to be hard. Yes, it is, but not as hard as dying from cancer while your son calculates whether your life is worth his time. He flinched at the words. Good. He should flinch. Dad, do you forgive me? I'm working on it. What will it take? Time? Consistency? Proof that you've actually changed, rather than just saying you've changed. And If I prove it, then maybe we can rebuild something. Not what we had before, because that's gone, but maybe something better. After he left, I sat in my small apartment and thought about forgiveness, about justice, about the difference between punishment and consequences. I hadn't destroyed my son's life to hurt him. I'd simply stopped protecting him from the natural results of his choices. When you treat people badly, they stop wanting to help you. When you lie to clients, they stop trusting you. When you value money over family, both money and family slip away. Michael was learning that every action has consequences. Every choice creates ripple effects. Every decision about character shapes the life you're allowed to live. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 6 months later, I received an unexpected phone call. Mr. Harris, this is Janet Murphy from the American Red Cross. How can I help you? We have a donor here who's been giving blood monthly for the past 6 months. He mentioned that he started donating because of you. What's his name? Michael Harrison. He says he's your son. I was quiet for a moment. Michael had actually followed through on his commitment to donate blood regularly. Mr. Harrison, are you there? Yes, I'm here. What can you do for you? Well, your son has asked us to call you every time he donates. He wants you to know that he's keeping his promise. Fe. He's also volunteered to be on our emergency call list. If someone needs AB-negative blood urgently, he's available 24 hours a day. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Harrison, your son also mentioned that he's started volunteering at Massachusetts General in the cancer ward. This surprised me more than the blood donations. Spending time with dying patients wasn't something that would benefit Michael's career. How often? Every Saturday morning. He reads to patients, helps with meals, just provides company for people who are alone. After the call ended, I sat thinking about change, about whether people could really transform their character or just modify their behavior. A week later, Sarah called me. Dad, I had lunch with Michael yesterday. How did that go? Better than expected. He apologized for how he treated both of us. He said he'd been selfish and stupid. What do you think? I think he means it, but I also think it's going to take time to trust him again. That's fair. Dad, he told me about the blood donations and the volunteer work. What did you think? I think he's really trying, not just to fix his reputation, but to become a better person. Time will tell. He asked if I thought you'd ever forgive him. What did you tell him? That forgiveness isn't something you can demand or earn quickly. It's something that happens gradually when someone proves they've changed. That's wise. Dad, I also think you should know that Michael and Jessica are getting divorced. This surprised me. I'd assumed they were working through their problems. What? A pen. Michael said Jessica couldn't accept their reduced lifestyle. She blamed him for destroying their social status and financial security. How is he handling it? He seems relieved, actually. He said living with someone who only valued him for his income was exhausting. That's a mature perspective. He's moved into a small apartment in Cambridge. Nothing fancy. He says he's learning to live within his means. Good for him. Dad, he also said something else. What's that? He said the best thing you ever taught him was that love isn't a business transaction. Those words meant more to me than any apology could have. 3 months later, Michael called me directly. Dad, I have a favor to ask. My first instinct was wariness, but his tone was different. Humble instead of demanding. What can I do for you? There's a patient at the hospital, Robert Chun. He's 62, has leukemia, and needs regular transfusions. His son lives in California and can't visit often. Okay, I've been spending time with him on Saturdays. He reminds me of you. Actually, worked his whole life to support his family, and now he's facing cancer alone. That's sad. Dad, Robert is AB-negative, same as us. I've been donating for his transfusions, but the doctors say he needs more donors for long-term care. Michael, are you asking me to donate blood? Only if you're healthy enough. I know you're still in remission, and I don't want to put you at risk. Why does this matter to you? Because I understand now what it means to watch someone suffer when you could help them. I understand what you went through when I refused to help you. And And I never want to be that person again. I never want to calculate whether someone's life is worth my inconvenience. I made an appointment at the blood center the next day. My first donation since before my cancer diagnosis. Robert Chun received my blood along with Michael's, a stranger whose life we were helping to preserve simply because he needed help and we could provide it. When I met Robert, I understood why he'd reminded Michael of me. A working-class man who'd sacrificed everything for his family, who'd spent his savings on his wife's medical care and his children's education, who now faced cancer with dignity and grace despite being essentially alone. Mr. Harrison, your son talks about you constantly. Robert told me during one of my visits, what does he say? That you taught him the difference between success and significance. That success is what you achieve for yourself, but significance is what you do for others. That's a nice sentiment. He also said you taught him that the measure of a man isn't his bank account, but his willingness to sacrifice for people he loves. I'm not sure I taught him that directly. Maybe not with words. But he said, watching you spend everything to save your wife showed him what real love looks like. It took him a while to learn that lesson. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. Michael said his experience of almost losing you taught him more than 30 years of lectures could have. Over the following months, I watched my son continue to change, not just his behavior, but his character. He took a lower-paying job with a non-profit organization that helped families navigate medical bankruptcies. He moved to an even smaller apartment to reduce his expenses. He started dating a social worker instead of seeking out wealthy partners. Most importantly, he continued volunteering and donating blood regularly, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 1 year after our confrontation in my apartment, Michael invited me to dinner. Not at an expensive restaurant, but at his small apartment in Cambridge. He cooked the meal himself. Nothing fancy. Spaghetti and meatballs. The same meal I'd made for him as a child when money was tight and we needed comfort food. Dad, I need to tell you something. Okay, I understand now why you spent everything on Mom. What do you understand? That when you love someone completely, their life becomes more valuable than your money. Their pain becomes your pain. Their survival becomes your priority. Yes, I also understand why my refusal hurt you so much. Tell me, because it meant I'd never loved you that way. I'd loved what you could do for me, but I'd never loved you enough to sacrifice for you. That's right. Dad, I want you to know that's changed. How do I know that? Because if you needed blood tomorrow, I'd be at the hospital before you finished asking. If you needed money, I'd give you everything I had. If you needed me to quit my job to take care of you, I'd turn in my resignation immediately. Michael, those are nice words, but they're not just words, Dad. Last month, when Robert Chun needed emergency surgery, I left work in the middle of a board meeting to donate blood. I didn't ask permission. I didn't calculate the cost. I just went. What happened at work? I got written up for leaving without notice. But Robert lived. That was more important. And you're okay with the professional consequences? Dad, I've learned that some things matter more than professional advancement. Family matters more. People in need matter more. Doing the right thing matters more. That's a hard lesson for someone in your position. It's the most important lesson I've ever learned. We ate dinner in comfortable silence, the same silence we'd shared when he was young, and we'd talk about his dreams and ambitions, before money became more important than relationships. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you forgive me? I thought about the question, about forgiveness versus justice, about redemption versus punishment. Michael, forgiveness isn't something you can ask for and receive immediately. I know, but I can tell you that I'm proud of the man you're becoming. That means everything to me. It's sold, because becoming someone worth being proud of is harder than being someone worth pitying. What do you mean? When you refused to donate blood, I pitied you. You'd become someone so focused on money that you'd lost your humanity. Pity is easy to feel. And now I see someone who's working to rebuild his character. Someone who's learned from his mistakes and chosen to become better. Pride is much harder to earn than pity. Dad, I want to earn your pride. Every day. Then keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting people before profits. Keep volunteering. Keep Donating blood. Keep being the man your mother would have been proud of. What if I slip? What if I make mistakes? You will make mistakes. Every June, those. But the measure of character isn't perfection. It's what you do after you fail. What should I do? Acknowledge the mistake. Make amends. Do better next time. That's all any of us can do. As Michael walked me to my car that night, he stopped and looked at me seriously. Dad, I need you to know something else. What's that? When I refused to donate blood, I thought I was protecting my future. Instead, I almost destroyed it. How so? Because a future built on selfishness isn't worth protecting. A life focused only on personal gain isn't worth living. And now, I understand that the best future is one where you've helped as many people as possible, where you've loved fully and sacrificed willingly, where you've chosen significance over success. Michael, that's exactly what your mother would have wanted you to learn. I know. I wish I'd learned it before she died. She knew you'd figure it out eventually. How do you know? Because she loved you unconditionally, the same way I do. That kind of love believes in people even when they don't deserve it. Do you think she'd forgive me for what I did to you? Michael, your mother forgave you the moment you made the mistake. That's what unconditional love means. And do you forgive me? I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw traces of the boy I'd raised, but also signs of the man he was becoming. Someone who'd learned that love matters more than money. That family matters more than career advancement. That helping others matters more than helping yourself. Yes, Michael, I forgive you. He hugged me then. The first time in years. Not the perfunctory hug of social obligation, but the desperate embrace of someone who'd almost lost everything that mattered. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for becoming someone worth forgiving. As I drove home that night, I thought about redemption, about second chances, about the difference between punishment and consequences. I hadn't set out to destroy my son's life when I told people the truth about his character. I'd simply stopped protecting him from the natural results of his choices. The consequences he'd faced weren't punishments I'd imposed. They were the predictable outcomes of treating people badly. But consequences, unlike punishments, can become catalysts for growth. Michael had lost money, status, and security. In return, he'd gained perspective, compassion, and purpose. He'd become someone who understood that love isn't a business transaction. He'd become someone who would donate blood to save a stranger's life without calculating the cost. He'd become someone who would sacrifice his career to help someone in need. He'd become someone his mother would have been proud of. And in the end, that was worth more than all the money he'd lost and all the social status he'd sacrificed. My son had refused to donate blood to save my life. But in learning the consequences of that refusal, he'd discovered what it really means to live. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had.